Hey everyone, I'm Kevin, and in today's video I want to share with you some things that help me to stay productive and keep doing stuff even when I sometimes don't really have any motivation to do them. And I think this is a very common thing that happens probably to all of us at some point. We are super motivated at the beginning to start something new, especially now at the beginning of the new year when we make all these New Year's resolutions like going to the gym or learning a new language or maybe writing a book. But then after some weeks, this motivation fades away more and more, and we're doing less and less of the thing that we plan to do. And before we know it, our motivation got totally swallowed by this big bad monster called procrastination. And we're ending up not doing anything at all anymore. I want to share with you 5 things that help me fighting that procrastination monster, and maybe they will be helpful for you too. If you want to jump to a specific point, you will find timestamps in the description box below. Okay, so let's get into it. So one thing that I do to find motivation again is to find more pleasantness and fun in the task at hand, or trying to create that fun somehow. One way to do this is to combine the thing that you don't enjoy with something you enjoy. For example, I don't always have the motivation to exercise and work out, but I really do like listening to podcasts. So I told myself that I'm only listening to podcasts while I'm working out. And this really gets me motivated to actually work out even if I don't really feel like it. So you can try that with different things, like listening to your favorite music only when you're going for a run, or having a nice foot bath while you're studying a foreign language. I don't know. Whatever you can combine. Important is that you allow yourself to do the thing that you enjoy only while you're doing that other thing that you don't enjoy doing so much. Another way to add more fun is to use gamification, to turn your task into some kind of game. For example, if you have to write an essay or an article, try to hit a specific word count after 1 hour, and then challenge yourself to beat that word count the next time you're writing. Or hang a calendar on your wall and mark off every day where you were working on your task and don't try to break the streak. And the reason why this whole gamification thing works is because getting better at something or making progress in something releases dopamine in our brain, which makes us feel good and causes us to want to do more of the thing that creates that feeling. The second idea that I found helpful to keep up motivation is to increase the variety of my work and my tasks. You can, for example, change the environment you're working in. Instead of working at your desk at home, you can take your laptop to go to your favorite coffee place or a library or to a park even. This new environment might already totally change your mood and therefore your approach to your work. Sometimes it might be even enough to just change your working spot in your apartment to have a new, refreshing perspective. Another option to add variety is to change the tools you're working with. For example, I often switch my external keyboard to my laptop keyboard. Especially when I'm writing, I prefer the laptop because it feels nicer to write on it than on my external keyboard. But when I'm doing stuff like video editing, for example, I prefer doing that on my big monitor instead of the small laptop screen. And when it comes to exercising, and I feel I'm getting bored with some exercises, I will just switch to different equipment or to different exercises that still stimulate the same muscle groups. So as soon as you're feeling you're getting bored of something, instead of quitting the whole thing altogether, you can try to change your environment or the tools that you're using to add more variety to your activities. Another way to tackle a lack of motivation is by using a grand gesture. This is something that Cal Newport describes in his book Deep Work. He gives this example of how J.K. Rowling wrote her last book of the Harry Potter series. And she was writing that at home and she had some real troubles finishing that book and couldn't really concentrate. So what she did is she checked into a very fancy, expensive hotel room to work more concentrated on that book, and she was actually able to finish it there. Newport says that by spending money for this expensive hotel room, she also put more importance on her work and she got therefore more motivated to finish the book. So this is what Newport calls a grand gesture. You invest a significant amount of effort or money into your task, which makes you perceive the task as more important and gives you more motivation to actually do it. That doesn't necessarily mean that you need to book an expensive hotel room, of course. Maybe you can simply go to a very fancy coffee place where they have this very nice but also quite pricey coffee, and you just get yourself a cup of that while you're working. With the effort of going to that place and spending money on that coffee, you might already feel more obliged to work because this was the whole point of doing it. And you can use a grand gesture, of course, for exercising as well, by spending money on a personal trainer, for example. And then you pay that trainer for several lessons in advance and also let them set an expiration date for untaken lessons. Another option could be also to give a friend an amount of money and tell them that they can only give it back to you when you did what you were supposed to do. This way you're not only perceiving your task as more important by actually putting money of its worth, but you also create accountability towards your friend, which can also be a great motivator. So a grand gesture doesn't make the task or its outcome more meaningful per se, but you're tricking yourself into committing to that task. If you spend some effort, time or money on it, you don't want that to go to waste. This is because our brain is very susceptible to the sunk cost fallacy. We are having a really hard time quitting projects we have already invested something in. So by using a grand gesture, we can actually use the sunk cost fallacy to our advantage and support our productivity. The next thing that really works well for me is rewarding myself from time to time for doing and for completing tasks. And there are different ways of how and when you can reward yourself. You can either give yourself some small rewards every time when you have worked on your stuff or when you did what you wanted to do. Let's say you want to write a book and your goal is to write 1 hour every day. Then every day you manage to do that, you can allow yourself to watch some Netflix or to play a video game in the evening. Just do something that you enjoy. Besides or additionally to that, you can also plan some milestones for your work and give yourself some bigger rewards for reaching these milestones. So for every chapter that you finished writing for your book, you can go to a nice restaurant, for example, and just enjoy a great meal. And of course, you can give yourself some huge reward when you actually finish the project you were working on. So when you finished writing the book, take some nice vacation for some time or maybe a spa weekend. Just do really something very nice to treat yourself because you really deserve it. And you can combine rewards actually very nicely with gamification. For example, every hour you worked on something, you can put a specific amount of money into a piggy bank. And by the end of the month, you can open that piggy bank and spend that money on something nice for yourself. And of course, the more you work, the more money you will have to spend. And in general, I think it's very important to always pat yourself on the shoulder every time when you have worked on something that is hard for you. Be proud of yourself that you've done that. And I would recommend to even write that down in a journal or something. That's what I'm doing to remind myself how achieving goals and finishing projects makes me feel. Because I think it's a good thing to occasionally look back at our achievements and just be proud of ourselves. And knowing that we have the capability to do and finish stuff, even if it seemed overwhelming at the beginning. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about I saved for the end because this is a tough pill to swallow maybe. At least it was for me. And that's the fact that motivation is a luxury we can't always have. There's this wonderful quote by the author William Faulkner who said, "I only write when inspiration strikes. Fortunately, it strikes at 9 every morning." And I love this one because it says that a lack of motivation or inspiration is just some excuse we're telling ourselves to not take action. But when we think about it, there's nothing that is actually physically stopping us from doing things anyway. And I think we can transfer this idea to any kind of activity that we have to do. We may not have any motivation to go to the gym, but we can grab our gym bag and go to the gym anyway. We may not feel like writing that article for our studies, but we can sit down in front of the laptop, open a Word document and start writing anyway. And I know that this sounds way easier than it actually is. Because to be able to just do things without motivation, we need something else. And that's willpower. And according to Stanford health psychologist Kelly McGonigal, the research shows that willpower decreases over the course of the day as your energy gets spent on stress and self-control. This has become known as the muscle model of willpower. Like your biceps or quadriceps, the willpower muscle can get exhausted from effort. So if our willpower decreases during the day, then the best time to do stuff that is hard for us is most likely in the morning. And that's why I try to do my most important task in the first hours after waking up, when I'm still focused and I'm still having enough willpower, before my work and before any kind of obligation that may come up later during the day. Often even before I check my phone or emails or anything else that might distract me and require any amount of my attention and willpower. And I think it really helps to schedule that in the calendar and then really just do it. Don't even think about whether you're motivated or not. Don't let your mind interfere. It's like you becoming a robot in the morning that has one task only. And of course, if you have to go out for work or school in the morning, you might have to wake up earlier if you want to work on something before. But if we're looking at the day through the lens of willpower, then our time in the morning seems to be worth so much more than our time in the evening. At least I've found for myself that I get more done in 1 productive hour in the morning than in 2 productive hours in the evening. So for me, cutting down some evening time for having more time in the morning is actually a pretty good trade. Also, don't forget, since willpower works like a muscle, you might need to train that muscle first. That means it's probably better to start small. So if you lack motivation to write, for example, then instead of trying to write 1,000 words in the morning, maybe aim just for 200 words. If you get into the flow and want to write more, great. If not, that's okay too. Just don't beat yourself up about it and try again the next day, and then maybe aim for a minimum of 300 words this time. The same when you have no motivation to go to the gym. Instead of planning to go to the gym right away, just plan to get dressed. If you don't feel like going out, undress and try it again the next day. But the next day, you're not only getting dressed, but you also take your gym stuff and decide to go for a walk. And maybe on that walk you actually decide that you want to go to the gym. If not, go home, try again on the next day. Just always add a little bit more to the whole activity to train your willpower muscle. So these were 5 ideas that helped me staying productive and getting things done even when I don't have any motivation to do so. Thank you for watching, and let me know in the comments if you found any of these tips useful. And also let me know if you have any other ideas on how to fight that procrastination monster. Also check out my last video where I talked about what procrastination is actually costing us every day and why we should finally start taking action on the stuff we want to do. So again, thank you so much for watching and see you in the next video. Bye.